Welcome to Deep Dive by the Quiet Footnote. Today we're really digging into a fascinating book. Malcolm Gladwell's Talking to Strangers. And, if you've ever felt super confident about reading someone, only to find out later you were completely off base. Or maybe you're just navigating this world, increasingly full of online profiles, quick takes, quick judgments. Well, then this deep dive is definitely for you. Our goal here is really to unpack Gladwell's big ideas about why we mess up so often when judging people we don't know. And crucially, what are the consequences? Sometimes they're pretty serious, even tragic. We'll explore why his work feels, frankly, more relevant now than maybe even when it came out, especially in our world. So connected, yet paradoxically, maybe more misunderstood than ever. So get ready, because Gladwell really challenges that gut feeling, that confidence we have in sizing people up. He offers some surprising facts, yeah, but maybe even a whole new way to look at just, everyday encounters. Okay, so let's unpack this. What fundamental problem was Gladwell really wrestling with and talking to strangers? What got him started on this?
It's interesting, right? Because on the surface, it seems simple, but it's actually this really deep, kind of unsettling question he's asking. Why are we, as humans, so often bad at understanding strangers? And maybe more importantly, what does that failure actually cost us? He's really pointing to this collective blind spot we seem to have. We think we're good at it, figuring out if someone's sincere or honest, reading their intentions. But the evidence Gladwell pulls together, it kind of suggests we're remarkably bad at it, actually. And this leads to these really alarming regular misjudgments. It happens in small ways, sure, but also in huge ways. Court cases, big financial frauds, policing.
Yeah, that sounds like it goes way beyond just like an awkward first meeting or something.
Yeah.
So what are the core breakdowns he identifies in how we deal with strangers?
Exactly. It's not just minor inconveniences. And the gap Gladwell is trying to fill is important because, think about it, most advice tells you, trust your gut, right? But Gladwell basically takes that idea apart. He argues it's not just about individuals making bad calls, it's systemic. There are these structural reasons built into how we function socially that lead to these tragic misunderstandings. It's less about bad actors, more about flawed tools that we all use.
Structural blind spots. I like that framing. You mentioned he breaks these down. What are these fundamental biases? And why are they so hard for us to just, see and overcome?
Yeah, he focuses on three big ones. Think of them as our default settings. First, there's our tendency to trust too much. He calls it default to truth. Second, this belief that we can see someone's inner feelings just by looking at them, the transparency illusion. And third, our habit of pretty much ignoring the context, the situation someone is in. And these aren't just little quirks, They're really fundamental to how we navigate the social world, and they lead us wrong again and again.
Wow, okay. That's unsettling, but it makes a certain kind of sense. So he lays out these problems. How does he build on that? What's the framework he offers to help us understand why we fail with strangers?
Right, so connecting the dots. Gladwell gives us these key concepts. And once you see them, honestly, it's hard not to see them everywhere. The first big one, as I mentioned, is default to truth. It's this really powerful, almost automatic human tendency to assume people are being honest. And it makes sense, right? It's like social glue. Imagine if you suspected everyone all the time, nothing would get done. Society would just grind to a halt. So it's necessary. But, and this is the crucial part, it also makes us incredibly blind to deception when it does happen. We're just not looking for it most of the time.
That's deeply unsettling when you put it like that. Can you give an example, something that really shows the impact of this default to truth?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Bernie Madoff. That colossal fraud went on for years. Why? Well, partly because regulators, investors, despite some red flags maybe, they implicitly defaulted to truth. He seemed calm, credible, successful. So they assumed honesty. And what's powerful about Gladwell's insight here is it changes how you think about gullibility. It's maybe not just a personal failing, but sort of the unavoidable price we pay for having a functional society built on trust. It's quite sobering.
Yeah. So we're basically wired to trust first, ask questions later, which is efficient, maybe, but leaves us wide open. Okay, what's the next piece of his framework?
The next big one is the transparency trap, or you could call it the illusion of transparency. This is our deep-seated belief that what someone is feeling inside, it just leaks out. It's visible on their face and their body language, their tone of voice. We act as if people are like open books. But Gladwell says, they're really not. We tend to project, right? We assume if someone we knew was innocent, they'd act a certain way, and if they don't match that, then something's wrong.
Oh, man, I know I do that.
Yeah.
You try to read someone's expression. Gladwell uses the Amanda Knox case here, right? It's a really stark example.
He does, yeah. Amanda Knox is a powerful illustration. Her behavior after her roommate's murder. It struck people, especially the Italian police and media, as odd or inappropriate, cold even. It didn't match their expectations of how a grieving, innocent person should behave. And that mismatch between her outward demeanor and their expectations was incredibly damaging. It shows how risky it is to equate surface signals with inner truth. Honestly, reading that section, it really shook my own confidence. It made me realize how often I probably assume I can just tell if someone's being genuine or not. We're sort of trained by movies and TV to expect transparency, but real people are way more complex.
Definitely. Okay, so default to truth, transparency, illusion, and the third one, coupling. That ties back to the context thing you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Coupling is absolutely crucial, and it really shifts how you think about why people do what they do. Gladwell's point is that behavior isn't just floating around freely, coming purely from someone's character. It's tightly connected or coupled, as he puts it, to the specific context, the environment, the circumstances. And his argument is, if you want to change behavior, often the most effective way is to change the circumstances, not just try to change the person.
He had that really striking example from London about suicide rates.
Yeah, that one really sticks with you. He talks about how London's suicide rates dropped dramatically when the type of gas used in homes changed. Coal gas, which was common, was very lethal and easy to use for suicide. When it was replaced by less lethal natural gas, the overall suicide rate went down significantly. People didn't just automatically find another way in the same numbers. It shows just how strongly behavior can be tied to the specifics of the situation. It really challenges that idea that behavior is just this inevitable expression of inner character. Context is more like a puppet master sometimes.
It makes you rethink a lot, yeah. Crime, addiction, maybe even everyday choices.
Yeah.
And what really drives these ideas home, I think, is how Gladwell uses these real, often heartbreaking stories, like Sandra Bland's arrest. It makes the theory feel very real, very human, and shows the devastating cost of getting strangers wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so with these core ideas, default to truth, transparency, Coupling Gladwell is really pushing back against a lot of common sense, isn't he? What are some of the biggest myths about understanding strangers that he just dismantles?
Oh, he definitely takes aim at some deeply held beliefs. He kind of peels back the layers until you see how shaky some of our assumptions are. So first off, myth one. We can spot a liar if we just pay close enough attention. We all like to think we can catch the shifty eyes, the nervous tick, the tell. But Gladwell says, forget it. The research shows humans are actually terrible lie detectors, barely better than flipping a coin. Our default to truth just blinds us. And think back to Madoff, calm, collected, fooling experts for years. He didn't fit the stereotype of a liar, so he got away with it.
That's a tough one to accept, isn't it? Because we all feel like we should be good at it, like watching all those crime dramas should count for something.
Huh, yeah, apparently not. It's humbling. Then there's myth two. People's faces and actions reveal their inner truth. This is the transparency illusion again. The idea that if someone looks guilty, they probably are. If they smile, they must be friendly. Gladwell's counter is that lots of people are mismatched. Their outside doesn't reflect their inside, especially under stress or in unfamiliar situations. Remember Amanda Knox, her perceived oddness was read as guilt when it could have been shock or cultural difference or just her personality. Demeanor is not destiny.
Okay, so first impressions, gut reads. They're unreliable. What about just spending more time with someone? Surely that must help. Leads us to myth three. The more contact we have, the better we understand them.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But Gladwell says, nope, not necessarily. Sometimes, more contact just reinforces our initial incorrect assumptions. Our default to truth can actually get stronger. His example is Neville Chamberlain meeting Hitler. Chamberlain met him personally, felt he'd taken his measure, and trusted his assurances. Big mistake. Meanwhile, Roosevelt, who never met Hitler face-to-face, had a much clearer, much more cynical, and ultimately correct assessment. Sometimes distance gives you clarity that closeness obscures.
Wow, that really flips the script on getting to know someone. Okay, what about the behavior itself, how we interpret actions?
Right, that brings us to myth four. Behavior reflects stable character, not circumstance. This is the fundamental attribution error, basically. We see someone act a certain way, maybe they commit a crime, maybe they just do something weird, and we think, well, that's just who they are. Gladwell, using coupling, argues no behavior is powerfully shaped by the environment. Remember the London gas example? Changing the context dramatically changed the behavior outcome. Actions aren't just reflections of a fixed personality, they're deeply tied to place and time.
And the consequences when we get this wrong, they aren't trivial. Sometimes they're devastating.
Absolutely. Which leads to myth five. Misunderstandings are just harmless awkwardness. Gladwell pushes back hard on this. His counter is stark. Misreading strangers can be catastrophic. It can shape history. The Sandra Bland case is his prime example here. A traffic stop that escalated tragically, fueled by mutual misunderstanding and misinterpretation of intent and demeanor. The cost can be immense, life or death even, not just a bad interaction.
Chilling. Okay, one more myth.
Yeah, the last big one is myth 6. Confidence equals credibility. We are just suckers for confidence, aren't we? Someone speaks clearly, looks you in the eye, seems totally sure of themselves. We tend to believe them. But Gladwell points out that con artists, spies, fraudsters, they rely on this. They are masters of projecting confident credibility. Conversely, someone who's nervous, maybe stumbles over their words, they might actually be the honest one, their anxiety stemming from the pressure of telling the truth, not from deception. So confidence is a really unreliable signal.
Okay, so Gladwell lays out these problems, these myths.
Yeah.
The book came out in 2019. But listening to you now, it feels incredibly relevant, maybe even more relevant today. How does this connect to our world now, especially with things like AI becoming so prominent?
It absolutely feels more urgent, doesn't it? His warning is about overestimating our judgment and underestimating context. They just echo louder now. Think about what you could call the digital stranger problem. I mean, how many of our interactions with strangers now happen entirely online? We're judging people based on, what, tweets, carefully curated Instagram feeds, avatars in a virtual space. The transparency illusion and default to truth are playing out constantly, but in these incredibly compressed, context-stripped online interactions, context is almost completely gone online.
Yeah, you immediately think of catfishing, online scams, influencer culture, where everything seems perfect. Even just arguing with strangers in comment sections based on a few words. And now with AI deepfakes, AI-generated text,
Yeah.
it adds another layer of difficulty, right?
A massive layer. How do you default to truth when the person you're interacting with might not even be real? Or when the evidence you're seeing, a video, an audio clip, could be entirely fabricated? Gladwell's fundamental warning, don't assume you can decode inner states from surface cues, becomes exponentially more critical. How do you verify anything?
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And what about policing and justice? You mentioned Sandra Bland. Events since 2019 seem to underline those points too.
Tragically, yes. Cases like Sandra Bland's aren't just historical examples. Think about the increased focus on police-community relations, the protests like Black Lives Matter. So many of these incidents involve rapid escalations based on misreadings between strangers, often across lines of authority and race, where assumptions about intent and demeanor prove fatal. Gladwell's framework helps explain, though not excuse, how these situations spiral. And then there's the whole issue of trust in institutions and misinformation. The kinds of deception Gladwell wrote about, like Madoff or Castro convincing spies. They feel very current with things like large-scale crypto scams, sophisticated phishing schemes, or state-sponsored disinformation campaigns. We're caught in this bind. Society needs trust to work, but that very trust is being weaponized against us online and offline, exploiting those biases Gladwell identified.
And even on the world stage, that Chamberlain-Hitler example feels uncomfortably relevant sometimes.
It really does. You still hear leaders talking about personal meetings, looking someone in the eye, feeling they got a sense of the person, only to be completely misjudged or manipulated later. It shows this problem of misreading strangers, especially powerful ones, persists in diplomacy and geopolitics where the stakes are enormous. So Gladwell's underlying message for today, maybe implicitly, is really about humility. It's a call to slow down our judgments, to assume we don't have the full picture, to remember the stranger operates in a context we likely can't see. That humility isn't just like a nice virtue, it feels necessary for survival in 2025.
Okay, that's a lot to take in. If you had to boil it down, what are the absolute essential takeaways? If someone remembers only 5 things from talking to strangers, what should they be?
All right, the 5 big ones. If you internalize these, you've grasped the core of Gladwell's argument. First, default to truth is both our blessing and our curse. Essential for society, but makes us vulnerable. We're built to believe. Second, transparency is largely an illusion. Don't assume you can read people's inner states from their outer behavior. Faces lie, or rather, we misinterpret them. Many people are mismatched. Third, context, coupling, drives behavior more than we think. Actions are tied to circumstances. Change the situation, you often change the action. Don't overestimate character. Don't underestimate context. Fourth, meeting strangers doesn't automatically mean understanding them. More interaction, even face-to-face, isn't a magic bullet for accurate judgment. Sometimes it just digs us deeper into our biases. And finally, number 5, humility is the crucial skill. The goal isn't to become a perfect human lie detector, it's to recognize our limitations. Slow down, question your certainty, be cautious. That's the real wisdom.
Those are powerful. Beyond those main points, though, reading the book or listening to this, you feel there's something else bubbling under the surface, a kind of unheard message. What do you think that is?
Yeah, there is, isn't there? Beneath all the specific examples and the frameworks, I think the quiet hum, the depot melody, is about the danger of certainty. We live in a world, a culture, that really values quick judgments, confident takes, being decisive. But Gladwell seems to be whispering that this very impulse, this desire to be certain about people we don't know, can be incredibly dangerous. It can be the seed of tragedy. So maybe the book isn't ultimately about strangers. Maybe it's really about us, our own arrogance, maybe our cognitive shortcuts, our blind spots, our deep-seated need to feel like we've figured people out quickly. And the unstated moral, perhaps, isn't get better at reading people, because the book argues we probably can't, not reliably anyway. The real moral might be accept that we're not great at it, and then build that humility into how we interact, how we design systems, how we approach conflict. So it's not just don't trust strangers implicitly. It's more like don't trust your own certainty about strangers. Reading it, I just kept thinking about, well, how often we all do it right. Even with the best intentions, we make these snap judgments. Oh, they seemed nervous, must be hiding something. Or they smiled, they seem nice. Gladwell just gently pushes you to pause, to consider that the story is always more complex, more hidden. That person on the train, the politician on TV, the new colleague. Maybe they aren't who we instantly assume they are. And maybe real wisdom starts with admitting, honestly, gracefully, I don't actually know this person yet. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the starting point.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. This deep dive hopefully challenges you, the listener, to do just that, to pause, to see the complexity beyond the quick read. In this age of, algorithms feeding us conclusions, sound bites replacing conversations, digital avatars standing in for real people, we encounter strangers constantly, maybe more than ever, often without realizing it. So the question Gladwell leaves us with is, how can you consciously practice this kind of humility in your own life, day to day? How could you maybe design your interactions, personally or professionally, to account for these blind spots he illuminates? What's one small adjustment you could make, starting today, to question your own certainty just a little bit more? Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. We really hope this gave you a valuable shortcut to understanding some crucial ideas about how we navigate the social world. We definitely encourage you to reflect on your own encounters with strangers, maybe through Gladwell's lens of caution and humility. Thank you so much for joining us on the Deep Dive by the Quiet Footnote. We wish you well in your ongoing journey of learning and insight.